So now we're going to cover the timeline of Adobe Animate CC, and a couple things to keep in mind: that the timeline runs primarily off the frames per second located here in your stage properties. Frames per second, which is, we're going to leave it at 24 frames per second. It's the rate of speed of our animation is going to be playing at, and by default it's set to 24, so don't change it. And let's go ahead and just dive into what the timeline really is all about. So when creating just basic images and creating some just standard content, one of the first things you're going to want to learn how to do is create layers. And your layers are located right down here in the bottom left hand corner. And it looks like a little piece of paper with a folded corner. That's how I picture it anyway. And I'm going to click on this, and it's going to create me a new layer. Now, the way these layers work are in a specific hierarchy, working from the top layer being the most top content on the stage, and then so on and so forth, working its way down. So let me go ahead and just give you an example of that right now. So I'm going to call this layer circle, and I'm going to make it a red circle. I'm going to go ahead and just draw a red circle. Now the next one I'm going to do is going to be a blue square. So I'm going to just call this square. And all I'm doing is double clicking on the name. It allows me to edit the text on the layer. And naming your layers is extremely important, especially if you're working with a number of different people on a different project file, or obviously the same project file, and you're sort of like importing, exporting different libraries and things. You want to make sure that you have everything named, otherwise it can be really confusing. So I'm going to go ahead over here and go to my square. Now I'm going to change this to blue, and I'm going to go ahead and just do a blue square. And I'm going to do this, let's just say like so. I'm going to hold shift to make it a square. So now what I've done is I've got my square hovering over my circle. So let me go ahead and just click and drag this underneath, and now you'll see that hierarchy coming into play where I have my circle over my square. So let's do that again, as you can see, adjusting. And what I'm doing when I click on these is I'm clicking once, and then I'm clicking and holding, and it allows me to access that dark line to click and drag basically. And I can go ahead and change my layers however I'd like. Now, another thing to keep in mind is, let's just say I forgot to create everything on a separate layer. Then you kind of got to recreate some stuff. So keeping everything separate on different layers is extremely important. So I'm going to go ahead and create the same red square, and then I'm going to create the same red circle and blue square. And I'm going to do this all on the same layer just to show you why it's so important to work with layers. And when I want to go ahead and separate these layers, I can't now. If I click on it and I move it around, if I just click on these layers down here, this one will just highlight the square. So I just click on the square layer. It'll allow me to go ahead and move around the square. If I click on the circle layer, it'll allow me to move around the circle. But if I click on the circle square layer, it does not allow me to do those things. So I'm going to undo that a couple steps. Now let's just say on the circle square layer, I'm going to hide these. This little eyeball here is show or hide all layers. And I'm going to hide this one. And I'm also going to lock it. This is a little lock. That means you can't modify anything on that specific layer. Now going back to the circle square, if I click on here and I'm holding shift to add to my selection, let me go ahead and zoom in. You'll notice that I'm going to have to select, it broke this down into very sort of strange, if you will, vertex points, because where these points meet. And you'll notice that little line tool calculation. This would now be a right angle located over here, as you can see, which would, because I have it highlighted, it makes some strange adjustments to it. When I go back to that selection, and you'll notice what happened is now I've got like this open-mouthed Pac-Man, red Pac-Man. They don't allow you to sort of separate the two shapes, whereas they sort of cut into each other when you create things on the same layer. So be very careful, especially when you first start out, that you try to remember to keep everything on a separate layer. Very, very important. So in order to delete a layer, say, oh, I don't want this layer, I'm going to go ahead and click on this layer just to make sure I have it highlighted, and then I'm going to click the little delete button, and now I no longer have that layer. Now you might be asking yourself, wait, where did everything go on my stage? I can't see anything, but I created all this stuff. Remember to go down here to your little eyeball and unhide these layers. Make sure you unlock them if you want to make any adjustments to it. So let's just say with the square itself, let's just say I wanted to create on purpose a green circle on it. So now on this square it also has a green circle, and it's still separate from the red circle. But I can't do anything on the red circle. If I try to, it's going to say the current layer circle is either locked or hidden. Would you like to unlock and show this layer? You can click yes, it'll unlock it, and so on and so forth. But it also gives you a warning that you're on that layer. So let's just say you didn't, and you were like, oh my god, I meant to be back on my square layer. I wanted to add another green circle to the corner of it. That will kind of give you a heads up on what is locked and unlocked, and sort of keep everything in your file very nice and neat and clean how you want it, without sort of messing up your other layers. So it's really, really important to remember to lock and hide your layers as needed. That'll probably come a little bit later once you sort of start animating things. Now, other things to keep in mind is animation itself. So I'm going to just sort of bring this square down here. And I'm going to take this circle, and I'm going to do what is called, I'm going to create some keyframes. I'm not going to draw anything. I'm just going to sort of slightly move stuff around. And I'm not going to do this too many times, but if you're using a Macintosh, your keyboard shortcuts are not going to work. So I recommend right now you pause the video, go to your settings preferences, and make sure you go to the keyboard settings and press the little checkbox that says enable all F1, F2 functions, etc. To work as standard keys, as standard function keys, something along the lines of that. And once you do that, go ahead and come back and play the video and follow along. So here, for any Windows users, F6 is the keyboard shortcut we're going to be utilizing right now, and that is insert keyframe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press, with my circle layer select, I'm going to press F6, and you're going to notice these frames start to go out. And I'm just going to go ahead and slide this ever so little, and I'm going to slide it out and press F6. I'm only going to do this a couple times. And I want to hit play. And now you see I have some animation. And that was simply by shifting over each time the same drawing. So this was just the same image. I just created a new keyframe and just slid it over slightly. So we'll get into more technical animation things, but I just wanted to show you the timeline. So now you see that I've got about 6 frames of animation. Now I can go ahead and also show you some other things. Like, let's just say I wanted this, for whatever reason, this square to sort of disappear and this circle to hold place. I'm going to go down here, I'm going to go to frame 20, and in this case I'm just going to insert a regular frame. So there's 3 different types of frames. So I've got here no frames at all, and then I've got this just standard frames playing off of this main keyframe, and then these are all keyframes themselves. And there's one other frame which is a blank keyframe. So I'm going to do right click and insert blank keyframe, and you'll notice that the blank keyframe, let me zoom in here, this blank keyframe, unlike, let's bring that directly underneath, this frame has a big white open circle, or gray circle, an empty circle if you will, and this has a solid black circle, which means there's something actually on this layer. Whereas if I click on this, you'll see nothing selected because there's nothing on this layer on this frame. So we do have stuff on the layer, but we have to go through the timeline to find it. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. This resets the zoom on your timeline, and this is your little slider, these little mountains, small and big mountains. That resets it to the default zoom on your timeline. And you'll see that at this point, it disappears and no longer plays up to here. Let's just say I wanted this square to turn into a circle or something, and it's going to turn into a green circle. Now, when I scrub back through here, I have this playing, and then it turns into, for one frame, a circle, and that's it. And then it's just that red ball stops. So on frame 20 up here, this is getting a little confusing, I know, but bear with me. Now I have this square turn into a green circle. So that's a little bit how the timeline works. Now, I showed you blank keyframes, insert keyframes, and just insert standard frame. These terms will become much more comfortable with you once you start to animate. And you may not be making sense of it yet, but you will very shortly. We're going to dive in and get into what is called the bouncing ball animation, and we're going to do some squash and stretch with it, and it's going to be really neat. And we will continue with the timeline on that particular animated project. So there's so much more to all of this software, but this sort of briefly breaks down the basic essentials of what you should sort of be aware of and what this software is capable of right in the beginning. Right before we end this video, I'll show you one more thing, which is just to make sure locking and hiding layers. So this little eyeball, show or hide layers. If you click the eyeball, it'll show or hide all layers. If, let's just say, I only want the square or green circle to appear, that will appear there. Playing through this, this little this little red playback head, this allows us to scrub through our timeline, and we can scrub forward and backward, and this is known as your playback head. Excuse me. Then we have our circle. I have this still hidden, so when I scrub through here, you don't see it at all. You only see the square, which can be really, really useful when you're animating. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn the circle on and hide the square, and you'll see I can go ahead and just scrub through that. And then I'm going to go ahead and one more time, I'm just going to unhide it, and I'm going to lock the circle. So now if I even try to select it, it won't let me make any modifications to this layer at all without coming up with some kind of warning. So let me go ahead and on my circle layer, click on here with the brush tool, and it says the current layer circle is either locked or hidden. Would you like to unlock and show this layer? And if you do, and you want to modify what's on the stage on this layer already, you can go ahead and click yes, and then you can go ahead and make some modifications. So one last thing about the timeline, we have our play here, step back a frame, go to first frame, loop sets up some brackets so I can adjust that, and when I play it back, it's going to loop back to the beginning every time. And then I've got some other tools here, but we're going to learn these in labs. So stay tuned for the next lab that we're going to be doing. We're going to be covering how to animate a bouncing ball, but more specifically, how we animate it is not going to be your sort of standard traditional animation. We're going to let the computer help us animate, and we'll get into that and motion tweens on the timeline in the next video. So thanks for watching.